Hello everybody and welcome back to the Sideline Eye podcast. We're only after witnessing Tyrone coming past Armagh by 2 points there, and Armagh obviously suffering relegation to Division 2 following Monaghan's victory over Mayo. I'm delighted to be joined by 8-time All-Ireland winner and former Dublin defender Philly McMahon. Philly, just your co-com there for the BBC, I suppose just sum up your thoughts at the full-time whistle there.
First of all, it was a typical Ulster game, wasn't it? End to end, couldn't take your eyes off it. I just think Armagh, over the course of the league have struggled offensively, and when they needed that goal, or they needed a goal in the game to give them that little bit of breathing space, it wasn't going to come. So I think Tyrone showed their experience, showed their composure when they needed to, and as you can see, Kilpatrick getting man of the match. Vital moments, taking on Charlie Ogo, Burns on the end line and getting a free. These are the little moments, or little choices that make a massive difference in getting a result that you need in a tight game. So I think Armagh, harshly, being relegated, they could have done, with the win against Galway, and maybe things would have been different, and it would have been nice for them to stay in Division 1 and continue to build on what they did and how they played last year. But when you have another team that you're relying on to keep you up, which is Monaghan, it's not really a good team that you want, considering their experience of staying in Division 1 and competing every year.
And how much of a setback is it, Philly? Because we've seen Dublin last year going down and coming straight back up and reaching All-Ireland semi-finals last year and nearly beat Kerry in that classic game. But for Armagh, a team building now, it probably is a big setback going down to Division 2, is it? I
think so. I think Dublin is a little bit different because they were in Division 1 for so long and they'd won so many All-Irelands. So for them to go down a level, although the teams down there are actually quite good as well, considering the teams they played against. However, for Armagh, I think the crucial thing is, they've had one good season, one kind of off season, and I think consistency is important for them. So they might try to turn that around in terms of championship. But next year, I think, for teams that are going to compete for All Irelands, they need to be playing Division 1.
And I think, Philly, you had mentioned about their attack, and maybe when that goal was needed in the end, they just didn't have it in them. But probably Armagh fans will say 16 points. If they scored that every week, they'd be happy enough, given their performances against the likes of Donegal and Galway, where they weren't putting up those big scores. But it just wasn't enough today.
Yeah, it was kind of like when you look at the metrics of both teams, you kind of suited for a game to be open and exposed. You've Tyrone, who have conceded 9 goals, and albeit 4 of them against Mayo, and then you've got Armagh, who haven't really conceded much goals, but their averages were kind of they're kind of countering each other. Like I think they've scored on average, I think it was 17 maybe points a game, and conceding 17 points a game. So you're just worried that if you wanted to beat Tyrone, you're going to have to get goals, and obviously with Rian O'Neill not playing, that's one of your key talisman out of action, and that's going to be crucial for you. I thought Stephen Campbell was brilliant, stepped up to the mark, particularly in the second half. I thought Jamar was brilliant. Jamar Hall was brilliant, very industrious in the first half. The game changed a little bit, so it changed the dynamics for him, and I definitely thought Falker was a brilliant. I think the one he hit with the outside of the foot was definitely over the bar from where I see, and so he had a brilliant game. But not only with the scores he got, but how he tackled in defence, turned the ball over in 1v moments, and that's quite difficult for a full back.
And just, Philly, I'll let you go on this. I'm not sure how many Ulster derbies and Tyrone and Armagh matches you've been at before, but it's tense, it's tight. There was only 1 or 2 points ever separated the teams throughout. What did you make of it? This
is me first behind enemy Lions. I was hit up in the box there, thank God. But no, look, I suppose for me, the style of footballer I love watching Ulster football. I love actually playing. I loved playing against Ulster teams because, first of all, there's a physicality element to it traditionally, but also I was able to get up the pitch when teams got back defensively. So I'm also, my dad used to call me a half-breed, which basically meant when I was playing well, I was an Ardie, and when I was playing poorly, I was a Free Stater. So I've got some blood in me from the north, so I understand what it's about and the tradition of it, and the heritage of GAA up the north.
Brilliant, Philly. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks very much.
Fergal, Logan, thanks very much for coming over. Fergal, tough, tense game, probably just what you expect from an Ulster derby.
Yeah, well, it seemed anybody I spoke to enjoyed it. I couldn't quite enjoy it as much myself, but anybody I spoke to said it was a great game of football. Both teams went at it hard. Armagh put 16 points on the board, which is a good return without goals, and we put 18 on it, I think. So listen, it was nip and tuck right to the end. Both teams deserve full credit. We're in the mid to end of March, and it looked like heavy championship stuff there with some serious hits and some great scores.
There was a physical edge to it as well, probably what you expect.
Well, these guys are well gymmed up nowadays, and they're serious athletes, and Armagh coming to town, it was always going to have a bit of an edge. Tyrone Armagh have a long history, and listen, it was nip and tuck, but it was played in a fair spirit throughout, and Tyrone just managed the game better down the last 5 minutes maybe.
And Armagh obviously won the 3 encounters last year. Was it nice for Tyrone to get one back over them?
Well, I'll not go too deep in that one. But listen, we had an unfortunate sequence of games with Armagh last year, so listen, it was time we put one over in them anyway, let's put it that way.
And to relegate that maybe makes it a wee bit sweeter for you, does it?
Well, I wouldn't say that, to be honest. My mum was from Armagh, and we've a deep regard for Armagh football, and it's just a bounce of a ball, literally. You wouldn't have given Monaghan a penny last week to stay up, and they've stayed up, and that has a consequence for Armagh. So listen, we'll be seeing Armagh later in the year, and they'll be fully loaded, and they suffered a bit with injuries there today, obviously, and during the week. So listen, there's no big field to that. It's a matter of just looking after our camp and hoping that it keeps itself steady and moves forward.
I know Ulster football sometimes gets a bad rap for being negative, but as you say, 18 points for yourselves and 16 for Armagh, like it's high scoring.
Yeah, I hear commentary they can't watch modern football. It seemed to me today that was fairly enthralling, and some great scores, and there wasn't too many wide shot on either side. I haven't seen any wide counts. A couple obviously on both sides, but it was good quality football. The weather this National League's been decent, so listen, every team in Ireland now reboots and heads for the summer.
Brilliant, Fergal, thanks for
Alright, thank you.
So I'm joined by Conleith Gilligan. Conleith, we're obviously after witnessing Armagh getting relegated Division 2. Just had Philly McMahon on the show as well there, and he was saying that it is a blow for Armagh going down to Division 2. What would you make of it?
I think it's probably disappointing because it's not where they want to be. That they've made great strides in becoming really competitive, but I think because Division 2 now, the way Derry and Dublin have treated this year, I don't think it's the blow that it maybe once was. Armagh definitely are going the right way. They've just been so unlucky. They lost by a couple of 3 points here. They lost by Kerry and Galway by a point, 2 to Roscommon. And if they can just get things tightened up a wee bit more at the back and have a wee bit more going forward, I still think there's loads and loads in this team. I thought in the first half, Turbot, if they got more ball to him, was remarkable at times. He was in 3 different players at one stage. Campbell had a quiet first half, but then exploded, like 4 points and a half is man of the match territory had they have won that game. So I think there's positives. Again, the worry I would have is that the players coming off the bench haven't probably had the impact of last year. If you look at the game against Galway, they got 1-6 off the bench, albeit in extra time as well. But today, I don't think they get any scores off the bench. They got 1 point. Aidan Nuji got 1 point the last day. In all games so far, I think they've only scored 4 points off the bench. So for me, the big strength Armagh had last year is how strong their bench was and how interchangeable they were. And they probably haven't had that impact. And look, that's something that you can't really change in the coaching sense. It's just something that sometimes happens. But I still think Armagh will be okay. And while it's a blow, I don't think it's the end of the world by any stretch.
And the squad depth that could be tested, Conleith, in the Championship, because obviously we know with Rian O'Neill, possibly 6 to 8 weeks. Andrew Mernon went off there in the first half, like 2 serious blows. I'm not sure how serious Andrew is, but 2 big losses for Armagh today and possibly further down the Championship.
Yeah, it is. And the big thing about Rian O'Neill, because he takes the opposition's main defender, it makes life easier for everybody else because they're marking somebody who's maybe not as adept in that man-to-man marking. So I think that's the problem for the forward line. But if he comes back, and then the decision is what you do with him, where do you play him, and because he's so versatile, you can play him anywhere. But that's the one thing, if you're looking at the pluses for Armagh, is that the versatility, you don't know where anybody's going to play, and I think that makes him very, very dangerous opposition to analyse, because it's very hard to see, is Charlie Oakes playing midfield, is he playing wing half back, is he playing wing half forward? He's just so good.
And I think Caro Kane had done a piece on that, Conleith, just about Armagh's lack of what would you call it, continuality really in their team selection. And Soupy Campbell was 8 today. He could be wing half forward last week. What do you make of that from an Armagh perspective?
Yeah, look, I understand where people are coming from when they look at it from the outside, but when you're in the camp, you don't look at it like that. It's a case of, well, horses for courses, who's the best person for that game, and how do you make it hard for the teams to match up against you? And I think that's where Armagh have a wee advantage. But if Cahir was obviously, it was a brilliant piece, and he would have been comparing it with Derry, who have pretty much played the same team week in and week out, bar the necessary changes. And if you look at Derry today, they did make changes, but because of the fluidity, they were able to go to Cork and win really, really comfortably, and it just keeps the momentum going. So it's those things, and I suppose, yes, players interchanging keeps other players on their toes, but it also maybe affects the confidence. So that might be where the wee disconnect is.
And just on this game today, Conleith, and I suppose overall Armagh's league campaign, what are the positives they can take out of it? I was speaking to Philly, 16 points today. I think Armagh fans would take that every game. Obviously a different result, but there was a frustration that Armagh weren't attacking as much maybe as Armagh fans wanted them to, but today with 16 points, it just shows that they do have that attacking threat even without Rian O'Neill and Andrew Murnan. Yeah, well, I suppose if you look back at last year, and again the game you look back to is that Galway game where they kicked 3-18 but they conceded 2-21, and while it was a brilliant game for supporters to watch, they still come out in the wrong end of it. So I think probably they were right to look at how defensively they can get more sound, and I think they've done that. And yes, when you get really sound defensively, sometimes it takes out of the threat, because obviously you can't have 4 or 5 men up the field, and I don't think that Armagh want to be in a position where they're conceding that level of scores again. So I think they've showed again Galway, and again Kerry, the two best teams in the country, that they can keep it very, very tight and very low. And when you can keep it low and tight scoring games with Rian O'Neill, Soupy Campbell, Turbot in the form he was in today, Gilligan, they're serious forwards, and I think they will end up scoring enough. But you're looking at, can you keep a team to 14, 15, 16 points? If you can, you always have a chance, but once you start conceding goals, it gets more dangerous. And they haven't scored, like this time last year they scored 7 goals through the league, they've only scored 2 now, so it's those things that they'll look at. But they have a wee bit of time. Antrim have showed a wee bit of form, but you still would expect, because they're playing Division 1 football, they will be at a different level to where Antrim will be in their progression under new manager Andy McEntee. So I think it'll be a case that they will have a game to get them up and running, and who knows, they're a side of the draw that avoids all the other teams. So it's not without on the realms of possibility of going to an Ulster final, and I suppose I think you have to maybe go back to 2008 from the last Ulster final, and so from that will be a massive positive. And while Armagh supporters and players will be really disappointed tonight, I think there probably still is better days ahead, so I'm just not as pessimistic about them. And I'll let you go with this, Conleith. Just on their defence, you've seen them a couple of times this year, and the narrative is that they have shored up that defence and obviously not conceding. They conceded 18 points but no goals today. A brilliant save by Ethan Rafferty to deny Derek Canavan in the first half. If you were Kieran McGeeney, would you be happy with Armagh's defensive displays in the last couple of weeks throughout the league? Yeah, look, I think you would. Like on average, they've only conceded 13 points on average per game. So today it was a wee bit more than that. It was a bit of an outlier, but I think they'll be really happy. James Morgan is still to come back. I know he played a league game yesterday for Crossmaglen, which will be a big boost for them. Kennedy has been missing. So they've had players coming out and coming back, and when they get everybody out, if they can pick up a full squad, they still will be really good. But look, I think it is a case that they'll have to keep it tight coming championship, but they've showed that they can on a template. Everybody knows they can play the rock star football where they kick the lights out. They've showed a different side in the league, and if you want to experiment, that's the place to do it. And I think maybe deep down, the two Kierans, the three Kierans won't be as disappointed as maybe everybody else around them. Brilliant, Colin. Thanks for coming on. No problem. Thank you.